Okay, so one of the handouts that I gave you says the 5 elements of art. So that's what I want to talk to you about when creating good design. Let's see if I can go into full screen mode. Yeah, cool. Y'all can see that? Whenever you create something for a design, you're going to be using what we call the elements of art. Art's made up of kind of different things, and this is kind of, you'll find this in everything that you do, not just graphic design, but also painting. You see it in drawing, you see it in movies, you see it in just about anything that you need to be able to visually communicate with someone. And these are just 5 basic elements that are common to everything that you'll go through. I'm going to show you how you can use them particularly in graphic design. So if you want, you can take notes along with it as I talk about each element and what it's used for. For the first one, a good design. If you want to be a graphic designer or work with a graphic designer, your good design has to be able to communicate a message. And it can't just communicate the message that you want to say. So like you can't just want to write a love letter to your boyfriend saying, I love you. It's got to communicate it quickly. They've got to be able to look at whatever you created. If you created a poster, if you created a newsletter, you got to be able to quickly disseminate everything that's on there. If it's done quickly, it also has to be effective. Did you lose anything along the way? If you create a poster and you forget to put something on there, or if you put it on there too small, then it won't be effective if you're not able to communicate with it. And it should also be done with little to no effort. One of the rules of thumb that you should always kind of keep in the back of your mind is don't make them think. If you go to a website, how many of you have ever gone to like a poorly designed website? You had to find something and like you didn't know where to go, didn't know what to do. You had to think too much. Well, the design of it wasn't very effective and it's causing you to waste too much time. So same way for poster design. If you ever looked at a bad poster and didn't know what it was about or didn't know how to find the information you needed, so when you do it, try to think about who you're contacting or who you're trying to communicate with and do as little no effort as possible. If your design doesn't communicate well, then it's a failure of a design. It's failed. So let's look at the 5 elements. The first one, and this is what we're going to do, how I'm going to tie it in. You also gave you a sheet. We're going to create a pizza menu. And this was a copy of it. You can download an example that's in full color. I gave you all a black and white edition. We're going to make a pizza menu. And it's going to be divided up into different sections, and you're going to have to communicate to someone how they can order a pizza. And it's going to have the different toppings, all the different choices, all the different things that they offer. And so we're going to use line, shape, value, color, and texture to do this. Line is usually the first one that people run into. Take a look at this. Let's say they put the pizza toppings on their menu and they scatter them about. Now it's fun, it's creative. You've probably seen some posters where someone announces a garage sale or trying to find a dog or something, and they just put the information randomly all over there. What's the problem with this design though?
It's hard to read.
It's hard to read. What's the first thing your eye goes to? Pizza toppings, yeah, definitely. What about in that jumbled mess? Is there any one that stands out over the other? It's hard to read, it's hard to disseminate, it's hard to know where to go to. Line in art allows your eyes to line up things and keep everything that are common in order. Usually we call this alignment. Now, notice it has line in the word alignment. But line is basically a way of directing your eye from one thing to another and keeping things in order. When you think of drawing lines, you want to connect one point to another point in the straightest possible fashion. So that's what line allows you to do. Keeps things organized across the page. So I'm going to change it. Let's add some alignment to this particular page. Now, it's much easier to read. Not only do you have alignment going horizontally across the page, you got it vertically. Everything's nice and in order. So if you stepped up and you had to order pizza toppings, instantly you know exactly how to read it. It's real simple, real basic, but having alignment is very, very powerful. Here's another great example. I heard this was a psychological experiment that someone did. They got like 1 or 2 people to stand out on a street corner. And all they did was just look up at a building, and maybe one or a couple of times they were pointing up to the sky. Weren't pointing at anything, weren't looking at anything at all. Just a couple people looking and pointing up. After a couple of minutes, there was a small crowd of people all gathered around them, just looking up there at whatever that they were looking at, just blank sky. You got people's attention, you were able to communicate something all because other people were doing that. They were creating a line from their eye going up their arm to off into space. Same way if I wanted to point to one of the posters that are on the wall, I can create a line from me to any poster and get your attention to go to that particular poster right there. How many of y'all looked at that poster if y'all were looking at me? See? I didn't have to say anything, I could just point and you know exactly what I'm doing. That's the power of that line has. Very subconscious, subliminal. Alright, so that's line right there. Next one is shape. Shape is, if you take a bunch of lines and form them together, you get shapes. You can't make anything in art without making some sort of shape. Now what we're using for this design, we're going to create shapes to delineate different sections of the menu. Take a look at the one on the left versus the one on the right. The one on the right doesn't have the shapes to tell you what each area is. How does adding shape for you add something to the design that's on the left?
Kind of blocks it all for you.
Definitely. It gives you a quick visual cue to say what area you're working in. Remember, one of the things of a good design is, can you disseminate the information quickly? Just by adding a different shape in there, it gives your brain kind of a mental, there's something different here. This is a different section. So shapes can do that. You're also working on a shape no matter what dimension or size that you're working on when you set up your document. Usually it's rectangular, but sometimes different papers come in different types of shapes as well. So you kind of know and understand what shape that you're working in. And I'll show you how to set up these different rounded rectangles once we get into it. Here's a big one. Here's one thing that I can tell the difference between amateur work and professional work. It's contrast. And even professionals make these hard decisions. Contrast is defined as the difference between two different things, usually a large difference. So it's a difference between one object or another, or the color or the values. In this case, this is the value in contrast. On the right-hand side, you got something that has equal values. So on the left-hand side, you've got contrasting values. So look at build your own pizza. I could have made that any color, but notice how, because I made it white, there's a lot more contrast. It shows up. If I had put black on top of the dark blue, there's very, very little contrast. There's very little difference. Same way if I chose white lettering, all the information's there, but because it's so light in the background, if you put light text on top of a light background, it's not enough contrast. You won't be able to see the difference. Another great way of using contrast, not just in color, but also what do you see contrasting between these two? Size and weight of different things. Adding different weights and different sizes kind of gives you a visual clue like, hey, these are grouped together in some way. By having the headers of it to be larger and bolder, like, these are all listed together, small, medium, and large for a size of bread. Breads are thin, thick, hand tossed, deep dish, da-da-da-da. If you wanted to de-emphasize something, give it a little less contrast, make it smaller, make it italics, that type of thing. If I was talking to you and all of a sudden, see how many people turned and started listening? It's because of contrast in my voice. If I started talking real loud, I don't like talking loud, so I'm not going to do that. It'd be a great contrast. You'd see, I was trying to say something. See? Okay, got y'all looking again. So that's the power of contrast, just by changing up subtly one thing from another. Next one is color. Color is very, very valuable to what we see. Color is simply the change in, sometimes it's called hue. Let's see, where was I going with this? But in this case, we're also using color to delineate each section as well. By keeping the colors similar in each section, you're mentally being able to tell where each area is, in addition to using shapes, in addition to using different types of contrast. So notice how build your own pizza, everything is in blue. The pizza toppings, everything is in red. For the Italian pizza, even though I'm throwing in red for there, it's also got green mixed in with it as well. Contrast that to the one on the right, where everything's all in one solid color. Now that may work out for your printer, because if your printer can't print in a color printer, this would be okay. But adding color to this, since we can do it, definitely makes it a lot easier to read through. It also adds a lot of interest, a lot of value to your design that you have as well. Anybody see any other color things on there? Okay, I'll keep moving on from there. Final one. This is my favorite. It's texture. Texture allows your design to look more natural. In nature, there's very, very few examples of just solid, flat color. If you look around on different things, everything has different lights and darks. It has a gradation of color, or it has just certain little textures to them. Now in graphic design, since we're printing and we're working on computer, we can't really print off real wood grain or the feel of fabric or the feel of fur. So what we're doing is called implied texture. It's just what it looks like. But adding a little bit of texture to the background makes your design have a lot more interest, and it makes it look a little bit more natural. It's easier on the eyes. The one on the right hand side, I could just make that background solid yellow. There'd have been nothing wrong with that. But by adding the texture like you see on the left hand side, it adds that just a little bit more interest to it, and also adds a little more value to the look and feel of the overall pizza menu. One thing you can notice, if you ever see anything that has a flat color to it, usually flat colors delineate things that are very sterile, they're very industrial, they're very calm and almost soothing kind. So whenever you see an advertisement for a hospital, or if you see a logo for a big name company, or if you see, let's see, what's another great one? Anything that wants to be sterile or just flat and industrial, usually you'll see a lot of flat colors to it. But if you want something to be grungy, if you want it to be historical, if you want it to be very natural and textured looking, that's when they'll throw in textures in the background to it. So usually if you'll see something on the History Channel, or if you'll see an advertisement for a really old company that they're trying to talk about the history of their company, in the background they'll have the old, usually old looking pictures, and they'll be crackled, or they'll have a different type of texture to it as well. Have y'all thought of any type of examples, or can you remember any examples where you've seen that being used a lot? I'm going to put y'all on the spot. Y'all better. Okay. If you look at a lot of what MC likes to use, you'll see they're starting to use a lot of pictures and a lot of things that are slightly out of focus for the stuff in the background of it as well. We're trying to show things that have a little more value, a lot of history, a lot of community in what we're doing. We could have easily just done flat colors and said, oh, this is MC, here's our flat looking logo. But by adding that little bit of texture to it, it really adds on to what we're doing as well. All right, any questions about line, shape, value, color, texture, contrast? So, when we create these, y'all be thinking about this. I've got a homework assignment I want you all to work on. I want you to find an example of each of the elements of art. And they're everywhere, they're all on campus. By the way, I'm assuming, does everyone in here have the ability to take a picture? You got it on your phone, iPod, some sort of way of just quickly snapping a picture. Good. If you don't, come see me and we'll work something out. I want you to just take a picture of a flyer or something you see in a magazine, an advertisement, or something that you find on campus that shows line, shape, value, color, and texture. Okay? One example for each one. And I've got on Moodle where you can upload your examples once you find them. They'll be due by the end of the next class period. And we'll just discuss what you see and what you found on there. Like I said, you can find these everywhere. You can go walk the halls of this building and see tons of flyers along the walls. You can use those examples. Go walk through the cafeteria. You can't be bombarded, or can't walk through there without being bombarded with different types of posters. Usually good, usually bad. Sometimes when you see different examples of things and you think, man, that's just a really bad design, well, it's usually because it's missing out on one of these elements of art, or they're misusing it in some different way. All right, so enough of me talking. Any questions before I move on? Y'all awake right now? Everybody eat a big lunch and just want to go to sleep? Okay, I did that too. The next thing that I passed out to y'all, let's close this up, we'll jump into InDesign, is your information on how to create this pizza menu. Now, it's two different pages. It's a front and back, and also on the last page I give you a black and white example of what the final should look like. So don't freak out. I put a lot of information on there just to make it easy for you to do. There's a couple of new things I'll teach you how to do today, but everything else, as far as formatting and setting tabs, should be exactly the same. Also, if you'll look on your instructions, I've kind of put, this is what it should look like, and then I drew a line with a little box to kind of tell you how to format each different area. So if you have any problems on how to format it, you can look right there, or come see me if you have those type of questions as well. If you'll go to today's Moodle, I'll scroll to the bottom. One thing you will need to download besides the instructions is this background JPEG. Let me do that right now just to make sure it's downloaded. We'll open it up in preview. And this is what the background will look like. Notice the background's got that nice texture. It's got little lines dividing up each different area. We'll use that once we start building the document, which should look pretty much like this. If we don't finish it up today, we'll just extend it and we'll work on it next class period. Give y'all time to finish it up. Let's see, I'll close this out and we'll refer back to it once we're working. Remember to create a new document. You can go to File, New, choose Document. In this case, we're not working on a letter size. We need to type in a specific size document. This one's going to be 4 inches wide, and the height is going to be 11 inches. We also want to set margins on all sides to be the same. Since I've got the link selected, I'm going to highlight just one of them, type in 0.25, and when I click off, it'll automatically fill in each one of those as well. Not going to worry about bleed and slug. We're just going to keep it like this for today. Now I'll say OK. And it's going to bring up a new document. Tall, slender, this is what it will look like. It's not going to fit totally on one page. We're actually going to shrink it down when we start to print it. All right, first thing we need to do is we need to load up our background image. Do you remember what tool we'll be using? If we use our text tool to put text on a document, what tool should we use to put a picture onto our document? Box with the X through it. Very good. This one right here, it's called your rectangle frame tool. So think about, you put pictures in a picture frame. Well, this is your frame tool. With it, I can click and drag anywhere. It'll create a blue line outlined box. If you follow in your instructions, I've asked you to give it a specific point and a specific size. So with it selected, let's go up to the top left-hand side. First of all, we need to choose our correct alignment. And I'm going to choose this top left-hand side of the box. Make sure that one's selected. In my X position, so the X point will be the top left-hand side of my box, is going to be 0, tab 0. And the width of it's going to be 4 inches. The height is going to be 11. So when I hit return, I've got a box that's the exact size that I need for it to be right there. Now let's place in our image. Whoop, cancel. I'm going to choose my selection tool just so I don't accidentally make some more stuff. I've got it selected. I'm going to go to File and Place. Now it's going to ask me to find the JPEG that I downloaded. I know it's in my Downloads folder. By the way, if you need to quickly find your Downloads folder, look for the word Art on your computer, and there's Downloads that is downloaded. I'm going to double click. And let's see, where's background? There it is, background JPEG right there. We'll hit open, and it's loaded up into what we're working on. So each area, there's 1, 2, 3, and 4 different areas that you can work from to put your information into the menu that we created. The next thing we need to do is to create some specific colors that we're going to be reusing over and over again throughout this design. Now before, when I asked you to choose a color, you can choose some pre-made colors. So let's see, I'm going to grab my type and make a type box. I'm just going to start typing out some different stuff and we'll recolor it. So I've got it highlighted. You can change the color of your type by choosing a little T up top. And these are some predefined colors, which is okay. But that's not what I want. I want to be able to create my own specific colors. To do this, with your type tool selected, look at the very bottom of your toolbox. Let's make it double column so I can see it. There we go. You've got this small T. I'm going to double click on this T. That's going to bring up a color picker, which will allow me to type in or select a specific color that I need. Whenever I choose a color, I can first choose one from the big square, and I can also choose the intensity along this slider here as well. Notice that whenever I change it, there are numbers on this side that are changing up on the right-hand side. The numbers that really matter for what we're working on are these 4 right here, CMYK. Why CMYK? Can y'all pick up on that? Okay, y'all gonna learn something today. Every printer that you print off anything from your computer or any other computer uses 4 different colors of ink. It uses a cyan, which is a blue, a magenta, which is kind of a bright red, a yellow, and a black. Cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Combinations of those 4 colors will give you pretty much any color that you want to print off and work from. And these are some other different color values, but the ones that we care about are these right here. So I can type in a specific color. So in our case, I'm going to type in, if you'll follow on the sheet, I say a C of 100, so 100% of cyan, a 90% of magenta, just a little bit of yellow, 10%, and no black at all, so 0. With those typed in, you can see I get this value of blue. And you can kind of get an idea. There's a lot of blue here, a little bit of red, not a lot of yellow. So it gives you kind of this dark royal type blue that you're creating. Make sense? Why do you think they put K for black instead of B? I mean, cyan, magenta, yellow, I get that's the first color on there, but why not B for black? I'm going to let y'all answer.
Maybe because it's confused with blue.
Very good, yeah. It would be confused with blue. If you saw B, maybe that's blue. So that's why they chose it for that one as well. All right, very good. I'm going to save a copy of this swatch by clicking on Add CMYK Swatch. And we'll say OK for that one. So I've clicked it once. Now if I hit OK, I can go up to my T up here, and there's our new color that we created right here. Let's do the same thing for the other 4 colors that we need. So double click on here. Need cyan of 15, magenta of 100, hit tab, yellow of 100, and a black of 15. So I get that shade of red. We'll say OK, add that color. The last one I need, I believe, is the green. So 85, 15, 100, it's already there, and 35. And we'll say add CMYK for the green. And we'll say OK. Now whenever I go to my swatches, I can scroll down. Here's my green, red, and blue that I want to work from. And that's how you've added and created your own swatches from there. I'll move that out of the way as we're working from that. Now we can actually get into building the different areas of our menu. I'm going to zoom in to this particular area, choose my zoom tool. You can click and drag over it, and it'll automatically zoom in, make it easier for us to work and see what we're working on. First thing I need to do, let's make the Build Your Pizza area up top. So I'm going to choose my type tool. Let's make a type box, click and drag. I'm not going to worry about the size of it for now, but I'm going to type out Build Your Pizza, all caps. If you'll look on the right hand side of your handout, I'm going to be using Optima, and it's going to be bold, so let's highlight it. Remember to change our font is up here, so I'm going to click right there. Whoops. Optima, bold, hit return. Fantastic. I also see that I want it to be center aligned to what I'm working on, so I'm going to change my alignment to center. The size of it's going to be 21 points, so here's my size. Throw that in there as well. The next thing I need to do is to make the background a specific color. I need it to be blue, and I want it to have those rounded corners. I have my type tool selected, so that allows me to change the color of my type, but I need to change the color of my text box. So first of all, let me change out the color of my type to white, because I know it needs to be white also. To change the color of the box, remember, we choose our selection tool. Now that'll bring up our foreground color, which is also up here at the top. And it's going to be this blue that we created. Bingo. So now I've got it blue, I've got it aligned center. I can even bring it up to make it aligned right there. By the way, everything needs to stay, needs to stay within our margins, so I'm going to move that inside of this pink area. That's our margins. So delete that. All right. Any questions so far? Am I moving too fast? Okay. Next thing we need to do is to round off the corners of our text box. Doing this is actually really simple. I'm going to select my text box. Once you've got it shaded in the color blue, look up to just the right of center on your well, what's that called? Control panel. This little button right here, if you click it, will give you some different options to change the corner edges of any box that you have selected. And there's rounded. With rounded selected, now the corners of this box are rounded. Really, no matter what size I make it, those corners will stay rounded. And that's what we're going to do. Let's back it back out. So that looks pretty good. Here's another tip for you. Since each area is going to have the same thing formatted the same way, all you have to do is make a copy of it, change the type, and change the color of it. Do y'all remember the quick way of making a copy of something?
Command C.
There you go. Command C for copy. Do you remember what paste was?
Command V.
Command V. Very good. So I've got to copy and paste one right there. Let's paste another one and another one. We'll go back and change the colors and the type once it's set up in there as well. I'm going to go pretty quick since we kind of already covered how to format text. Excuse me, I'm trying to zoom in and get into that. Format text and align text. And what I want to get to is how to set up tabs again, and also type in specific characters that we're working with. So this first one, I'm going to just click and drag and create a text box. My font is going to be Minion Pro. In this case, it's going to be italic. Going to be 9-point. And the leading is going to be 10-point. The alignment's going to be center. So now all I got to do is type it out. Make your pizza to order. Hit return. Fill out the order card below and bring it by any of your return. Our specialty shops. All right. One thing I forgot to do is tell you to make that blue, so I'm going to highlight it. Boom. Now it's blue. Remember when we print this, these blue bounding boxes will not print off. They're just there to make sure everything else is aligned. Now let's set up the actual text for the different sizes and toppings for the pizza. No, not toppings, the different types of bread. First thing we're going to do, let's type out what we have, then we'll go back and actually set the formatting and tabbing that we'll work with. So we type out size. Remember to set a tab, we need to actually hit tab on here. So I'm going to hit tab, it'll space it over, bread, tab, sauce. So that's the first line. Everything else is going to be lined up underneath these. So let's hit return. Now I need to tab over again. If you'll see on your example that I've given you, there's going to be a small box. It'll be a checkbox that you can insert into there. Now this checkbox, there's no specific character, at least not working in the character font that I've chosen for that text box. So we need to change a character and insert what's called a special character. To do this, I'm going to go up to Type, and let's see, go down to Glyphs. Opening up Glyphs will give you a special dialog box, and you can see I've recently used it, but I need to change my font down here at the very bottom right hand side to what's called Zap Dingbats. So Z-A, there it is, Z-A-P-F, Dingbats. There we go. With it selected, now I've got all these pretty different fonts to work with, and here's a checkbox that I can use. So I'm going to double click on it. When I double clicked, you can see it's now inserted into what I'm working with. I'm going to just close that out. Uh-oh. Now if I keep typing, notice it changed my font to Zap Dingbats, and nobody can read Zap Dingbats. So I need to change it back. Of course, I was working in Minion Pro, and it was going to be italic. So there's small. Here's another quick tip for you. Since everything else is going to be the same, I'm going to copy that. Got it highlighted. So edit, copy, hit tab, paste, tab, and paste. So now all I've got to do is select it, type in thin, select it, spicy. Okay? Any questions before I move on? I'm going to do one more row by just highlighting it. Remember, I've hit tab, type, tab, type. I've even got a tab there, even though it's not tabbed over. But when we set it, it's going to work. So small, medium, thick. Even if that happens, don't worry about it. We're going to keep going. I know it's going to work out. Large. And toast. And tomato. Alright. Last one. Oops. Paste it. There's nothing going to be here, so I'm going to just tab over. Then deep dish. And then. Alright. I've got a jumbled mess here. Let's work something out. I'm just going to work with these for now. So all I got to do is highlight, make sure you get all the tabs from this point all the way down. Another thing I need to do is to change this font to 10-point size. There we go. Now it's looking good. Still need to line it up. So I need to open up my tabs dialog box. So I'm going to go to type and choose tabs. And this is where this one will come in. Remember to set a tab. First of all, we're going to choose the type of tab that we want. In this case, it'll be on the left-hand side. And I can click anywhere on here and set a tab to be where it should go. The first one's going to be 1/4 of an inch. So this one's going to be set right there. Because I set a tab, that one all lines up right there. The next one's going to be at 1 1/8. So let's click here. 1.125. Everything on that row is lined up. Same way for this next one. Whoop. 1 and excuse me, 1 3/8. 375. Two and 1/4. Hope Mr. Ivy hadn't messed up on something. He hadn't done this in a year. And the last one's going to be 2 1/2. Alright, so I've got everything, there we go, lined up the way it should be, except for deep dish. I bet that one is off because I accidentally put an extra tab in there. So all I've got to do is back it up. Now it works out fine just from there. Any questions so far? If you'll set the tabs on the top, everything will line up the way it should be. I've got to set the same thing for this one, so let's make it bold. There we go. This time I'm just going to type in on the letter X, so 0.25 when I hit return. I've got one automatically set right there. Let's set another one. 0.25, 1.125. Set there. 1.375. Uh-oh. 375. There we go. And the final one, 2.25. And the last one, 2.5. Fantastic. Now I see what I did wrong. Notice how I want it to be kind of offset a little bit. That's why I added that extra one right to the right-hand side. This way, if I hit tab one more time, I can tab that over and it'll start aligning to that area while the bread is aligned to that area. So all I gotta do is tab over once and do it that way. Did I lose anybody? Sorry, I went quick on that. Once you set up the tabs, you'll be able to tab over and set it up the way you need it to go. Last thing I need to do, let's create special instructions area down at the bottom. I'll show you the next one and then I'll turn it over to you to work on it. So let's type out special instructions. How many of y'all have ever typed out something maybe in Microsoft Word and then you've hit like underscore to fill in that way? It's a common thing to do. I'm going to show you the graphic design way of doing it, the professional way. First, let's set my font the way it should be. Size is going to be 13. It's going to be right aligned. Leading's going to be 16 point. Let's do it that way. Now, what I want to do is I want to create lines on each different area. So I'm going to hit tab. Well, let's set up my tab first before I even hit tab on there. There's a special tab called the right align tab, right justified tab. With it selected, we're going to put it at 3.5. So right at the very end, you can see when I click of my text box. Pretty close right there. Let's make it even 3.5. What I want to do is whenever I hit tab, I'm going to make it create a line from this point to the end of where the tab is by adding what's called a leader. The leader is any character that you want to go from this point to this point. In our case, in this area, I'm going to put the leader as an underscore. So now I'm going to hit tab, watch what will happen. It creates a line from that point. So all I've got to do is hit return, go to the next line, and press tab, and it'll create all the tabs, lines that I need no matter where I put them to. I can even change the position of this tab, and it will change up the ending point of that line wherever I move it to. Pretty cool. Any questions about that? Adding a leader? So that's what I mean when you add a leader to something, it'll add that character over and over and over again to that point. I can change it up to anything. If you ever wanted to do like a table of contents and you wanted to have the ... change your leader to a point, and now I've got text going over to that side. I can put numbers on the other side to start typing out as well. Or I can fill it full of Q's or 2's or U's. Okay, we'll do underscores. All right. I'll back it up. One thing I forgot to do was to make all of that blue. You can make it blue for your area as well. Let's move on to the second area. I'll turn it over to you, and I'll show you how to create a center alignment for each one of these. First thing, remember we need to change up the color of the background. So I've got it blue. Let's make it that red that we created. In our case, we're going to call it pizza toppings. Let's grab our type tool, create a text box below here. I got tabs on. Add your favorite toppings for $0.5 cents extra. Let that be centered. And needs to be 10 point, 9 point, 10 point lighting. Uh-oh, didn't type in a number. 9 point, 10 point lighting. Perfect. Let's go to the next line. Double space. I'm going to change my aligning to back over to left-hand side. For this area, we want each of the toppings to be typed out, 3 on each line, but we want them to be centered, vertically aligned with each other. I'll do just 2 lines to show you how to do this. First thing you need to do is to type a tab. And you'll see why in just a second. So I'm tabbing once, type in, say, green peppers. Tab again, onion. Tab again, squash. Sausage. Then hit return. Tab once, black olives. Tab again, Italian sausage. S-A-U-S-A-G. Tab again, bacon. Alright, so I've got them typed out, but they're all still just aligned on the left-hand side. So we're going to highlight it. Let's set a tab. This time, we're going to use a center alignment tab, and that's this one in the center right here. If you'll look on there, the first one's going to be at 0.625. Right there. So you can see it's now jumped in alignment. The next one's going to be 1 3/4. Right there. And even the next one's going to be 2 and 2.875. Right there. Aha. Now that they're all aligned, centered with one another vertically, I can even hit return, hit tab again, and start typing, and it'll type centered with whatever I need. Tab. So on and so forth that way. So no matter what I type, it's always going to align itself to that tab that we've created. Any questions? We've only got about, let's see, we got about 30 more minutes in here. I'm going to turn it over to y'all and let y'all work through here. You can get as far as you need. Once we work on it, we'll pick up the rest of it next class period. Any questions about the homework? Okay. It's all yours then.